What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for Your Overwatch. Although there's a few rays of sunshine in today's video, for the most part, things are looking grim. But that means the stage is set for a comeback story. I know you're skeptical now, but hang with me throughout the video. Let's take a look at the timeline of events from the past week, Overwatch 2 news, Overwatch 2 leaks, and still massive fallout from the public lawsuit that we discussed in a previous video. But first, the message from today's video sponsor, Manscaped. Fellas, you guys know it to be true, manscaping is a required part of life, but you need the right equipment. You can't be going down there with a couple of garden shears just hacking away. You're gonna aim for leaves and accidentally hit your twig and berries. Snip, snip, and you're done. Game over. That's why I've been a happy Manscaped customer for the past 2 years. The Lawnmower 4.0. This bad boy is serious business. That bit at the top is skin-safe technology, which means the blade of the thing stays away from your sensitive skin. I showed you this last time, but more than happy to just shave away at my arm, and it's difficult to hurt even the most sensitive skin, which is what makes this so good. This time, Manscaped sent over the Performance Package 4th generation ball toner and ball deodorant. This stuff's great for coming out of the shower, really freshen stuff up down there, which, let's face it, fellas, you need. You also get the Weed Whacker. The Weed Whacker also uses skin-safe technology to avoid any of those troublesome snags, but this one's for that gross nose and ear hair, which I'm old enough to start getting. Listen, I was skeptical on this one at first, but I tried it out and I'm like, yeah, that's super easy to use and feels great. I don't want to live without it now. This one gets my endorsement too. This is must-have product, guys, and you want to check it out by clicking our link in the description to manscaped.com/Overwatch and use code Overwatch20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. Pick yourself up a 4th generation performance package with that Lawnmower 4.0 and you will not be disappointed. I guarantee it. First up, for current Overwatch fans and players, the new patch that was featured on the experimental went through to live with just a few changes to the wording, but changes remaining the same. My early review of this patch is that it feels pretty good, and I'm always a fan when Blizzard institutes complementary changes at the same time. So as an example, Soldier gets buffed, which sounds scary, but characters that mark him, like Doomfist and Genji, also got a bit better. Changes to Wrecking Ball's run back, or Hog's meaty face with the Overwatch 2 change that reduces how much ult you get from shooting him, just feel good. They feel right, like the core center of the game is coming together in another step forward, which frankly, balance-wise, has already been the case. We're in like the refinement stage of the game. On one pillar, Blizzard's doing great. A+, so time to end the video. We got nothing else to cover, right? Well, as it turns out, the player base, the community, the investors, everybody needs more than just good balance from this game franchise. We need new content, and a workplace culture that isn't inherently toxic for our developers would be nice. Okay, one thing at a time. In the Activision investor shareholder meeting, Overwatch 2 was mentioned, citing strong progress on Diablo 4, with confident language on that game, saying D4 is shaping up incredibly well. The team is allocating substantial resources to creating exciting content to drive engagement over multiple years, which of course is their strategy for all their games. What are they going to do for us, though? It goes on to say the expanded Overwatch team, as in the dev team, is similarly making strong progress on Overwatch 2, with development passing an important internal milestone in recent weeks. After a great response to the recent community update, the team is looking forward to revealing more of the game in the coming months as they approach the later stages of production. That all sounds great, right? They used strong language for Diablo 4 and then slapped out Overwatch 2 and said, yeah, it's similarly making strong progress. But I'd hope if we've learned anything from the past couple weeks, it's to not trust this corporate talk and try to read between the lines a little bit. Let's scrutinize some of the words being used here. First of all, great response to the recent community update. What is he talking about? Is it crossplay? Is it the announcement of 5v5? There was an overwhelming response, I would say, at BlizzCon Online, but that was back in February. And in between that time, they've said that they're going to try to have more continuous communication. And as it happens, well, it's been a couple months since they've said anything. Remember, crossplay was announced 2 months ago. So yeah, it came out in between that time, but that doesn't mean we're keeping up with communication, really. We're lagging behind and we're due for our next drop of communication, I'd say. But I'm struggling to find where this positive reception is exactly. I'm high on Overwatch 2, but I'm not so sure the entire community is, like they're trying to sell it to the investors. Okay, so if that seems a little odd, let's think to the other major statement made made in this post, the development team has passed an important internal milestone in recent weeks. What could that mean? Well, basically anything, right? I think it's safe to say like a big chunk or phase of the game development is past. We'll get more into that with the alleged leaks from the dev team in a moment, but just finishing up on this, they say that they look forward to revealing more of the game in the coming months as they approach the later stages of production. So seems somewhat optimistic, like they're on the back half of the effort that it's going to take to finish Overwatch 2, and they'll have more to show. Okay, great. I'm looking forward to it. But now let's take a look at some recent leaks from Metro, whose reputation has been scrutinized in the community, I think, when something that he leaks at one moment either turns out to not be true due to circumstances changing, like let's say the game being delayed, which I'm almost 100% confident it must have been, despite Blizzard never officially announcing it, or his source is perhaps not 100% correct on everything he's ever leaked. Let's just be honest here. No one has a better track record at leaking behind the scenes info on Overwatch over Metro. He's just the guy. And he's made a few recent comments that'll add some context to this. First, coming out with a tweet, Overwatch 2 news. I've heard from multiple people close to my original source with Overwatch 2 that the development is taking longer than expected. From what I can gather, a release in 2022 does not seem likely anymore. I hope this is false and I'm proven wrong. That being said, if it turns out to be true, rip Overwatch. No way the game will be alive for another year and a half without major updates. I'm okay, I'm not crying, as he relabels Apex to Overwatch 2. Having had experience speaking with Metro and covering him for years, it's safe to say that he's framing this leak as a rumor, more so than a confident, like, milestone leak. Remember how the leak game works. You get bits and pieces, or hints, or context. It isn't as simple as Jeff Kaplan himself goes to Metro and explains, here's our plans for the next year. It's not like that, right? So he's working off table scraps of information, and the framing of this tweet indicates that it's a conclusion based on the context of his clues that he's gathered together. He goes on Twitch to explain this even further in this clip.
From what I've gathered, I heard, so the heroes are done, mostly. The new heroes, right? That they want to add for Overwatch 2 when it releases are done. And they have like a basic single player campaign completely done, basically. Okay? And they also have the maps done for multiplayer. They have them done. The thing they have not done is they did not consider anything in terms of like reworking any heroes. For example, when they showed the last time they showed the updates for Overwatch 2, right? Like the sneak peek. Remember the sneak peek PvP Overwatch 2? They have not even considered how McCree might be completely busted with a stun in Overwatch 2. So now they, after people like told them, they now realize that they will need to rework like heroes that they haven't even considered.
So that clip had a ton in it. And don't let the negative parts weigh down the big internal milestones that the dev team maybe have been passing if Metro is correct. Single player campaign done, heroes done, all the maps for multiplayer done. Well, that's a significant milestone if I've ever thought of one. Now is the refinement stage. Now, there's a thing with Overwatch content creators. We can be a bit cynical about these things, and you have to frame how Metro is speaking about this from the mind of the typical ranked grinder, and maybe tune down how harsh he's rating some of these things. Where I know what he means when he says, well, they didn't consider how they'd have to balance all this, framing it as if that's a bad thing, but I'll have you know, that's how Blizzard always designs. That's like not like a new development. In fact, it's a major strength of theirs. So I'm in both camps here, where if I think Blizzard's designing the game poorly or incentivizing the wrong skill sets that kind of rob the competitive integrity of the game, I'm gonna say that. But on the other hand, having spoke with the devs, I know they most definitely do not consider the framework of the overall balance and competitiveness first, okay? And we don't want them to, I don't think, realistically. If we want them to make actual progressive development and take gaming to a whole new level, thinking outside the box, you kind of need that level of creativity where you're not weighing it down by all the implications of balance. Now, that goes too far when you have like the goat's meta or something, right? So before you type that out in the comments, like, yeah, I know. All I'm saying is, oddly enough, I don't find this clip to be as negative as a lot of people are reading it. In fact, it all sounds positive, other than the fact that it might take them longer than they thought to do this process. And let's face it, it's not like Blizzard as a company or Team 4, having worked on Project Titan beforehand, are known for like their stellar project management to keep to a time schedule, right? This isn't the Call of Duty
army teams that rotate every year. That's not how development gets done. Now, that business sense to produce in a strict and disciplined way has been enforced on the team now, so we're kind of in the middle of that transformation, which is why you kind of have both worlds going on, where the older school devs still have that, let's say, dreamer-like mentality to try to go wide with their efforts, but yet on the other hand, there's the production team that's like, well, if we don't get this game out eventually, our shareholders will be upset, and well, there's a lot of reasons for shareholders to be upset nowadays. I think another way to read Metro's leak is that they never really were letting those deadlines be too serious, I think, because you have to think about the internal conflict to create that. The devs might be there sitting saying, well, we created one of the greatest games of all time. Give us time. But the business model of Overwatch maybe didn't conveniently fit into that time scale, which is why you get a catastrophically bad decision like, well, we're going to have a multiplayer game that we stop supporting for 1.5 to maybe going on 2 years. I mean, yeah, they add maps and whatnot and skins, but you know what I mean. New heroes are the real content of the game. Okay, there's a lot going on with that. I'm sure many of you are like me, and I just want them to make the best game possible. And I'm somewhat enjoying not having new heroes or content because the balance of the game is great. It just feels like nobody really knows or is that interested, which makes me a little sad. But all in all, they promise to be more communicative, haven't said much recently, a lot in the air, a lot of leading statements. I think we're going to have the next news drop pretty soon. And remember, in the mix-up of all of this, they did have an arcade map that was set to launch during the lawsuit scandal and just quietly snuck into the PTR without much fanfare. So I expect we'll be getting that soon and hopefully more updates on what's going on with Overwatch 2. And I want to frame, again, our position on this, that although Blizzard internally might be a mess, no big surprise there, due to the lawsuit and everything, it's our hope to be on the positive Blizzard 2.0 side, which I'm going to get into a little bit later. But first, I want to explain some more fallout due to that Blizzard lawsuit. You would have noticed if you've watched the recent live streams or even taken a gander over to the partners page on the Overwatch League website, only Xfinity and TeamSpeak remain. Coca-Cola is still labeled there, but have publicly said that they're reassessing things. And that means sponsors like Kellogg's, who own Pringles and Cheez-Its, the biggest meme of the Overwatch League, they've pulled out. So have IBM, who did all the tech on the back end for their power rankings. State Farm, T-Mobile, who's been a Blizzard partner for years. They're all pulling back, and we're thinking the sky is falling. What does this mean? Well, on one hand, it could mean the Overwatch League is done, flat out. That is a distinct possibility, because if Blizzard gets the black mark of not being a family-friendly brand that anybody wants to work with, then the numbers they're producing for the Overwatch League aren't attractive enough for these marquee advertisers to waste any time into. And this is a thread I want to begin planting here to note that Blizzard can't get away with just coasting on goodwill that they generated from years and years ago. Some of us in the know maybe know that the sausage is made in an uglier way, or apparently some people knew about the claims in the lawsuit for years as well. But as far as a public perception is concerned, either there had been built up goodwill among the fans for years, but even more goodwill among the business partners, so that even when the Overwatch League was dipping, well, they still had the business acumen to make the deals necessary to go from Twitch to YouTube and secure all the sponsors to keep it afloat. Well, now you lost that too. So it's not just the fans that are mad, getting mad at BlizzCon events when you say things like you don't have phones, you think you want it, but you don't, all that kind of stuff. But now these businesses are wondering if they should even put their logo on what you do because of what you represent. Now, I will say there is a chance that this is a collective power play that is being done in order to renegotiate the value they're getting from these brand deals. Maybe after the lawsuit dies down a little bit and Blizzard prove to the community that they're on the right track, then these sponsors might reevaluate their position. But the way that these contracts are typically written is that if you do anything that puts you in public disrepute, the deal can just be off immediately and canceled. And I bet that's what's happened here. What does this mean for Overwatch? Well, if the Overwatch League dies, I honestly think it'll be better for the game. And a lot of people think that too. Whether you are a fan of high-level competitive Overwatch or you hate it, I think both player bases will simply be better if Blizzard steps back and stops trying to control everything. Because let's face it, it's not like the Overwatch League is some booming success that they can be really proud of. I mean, it took them 4 years to get a decent format down, pushing out industry experts, ignoring their opinion, opinions. They don't know anything. Let's bring in sports ball people that can make all the decisions for us. That's going to really work. And they blamed a lot of the failure of the 2020 season on the lockdowns, but based on the business model, it looked like that might have saved the economy of it. So that's just nonsense. It's like the teams paid $20 million to get into this league. There's no other way to slice it that it was mismanaged. And it's distinctly the opposite approach that Riot took with their new game Valorant, which is to say, support the grassroots, let them run things and try things out. Let that go for a couple years. Give them funding and support, but don't make every decision like you know everything. And don't let it overtake your focus, which, I mean, it just clearly did. There's no way around it. I feel like they were still developing the competitive format for the game while trying to make this huge esports league. And esports typically take like 5 years to really even cement how they want to be played from their community. So it's just beggars belief, and it defied every rule from history that we've seen with competitive esports for the past 20 years. I would really hate to see Overwatch League go, but I'm happy to see Blizzard take a step back in controlling the esport entirely and monopolizing it, because I think those results more or less speak for themselves. It has damaging effects on the game. It has damaging effects on the esport. If you study business at all, there is such a thing as expanding too fast. And that's what this did in a nutshell. It's not surprising the results. And well, that's my thought on that. I love high-tier competitive Overwatch, but I think it will still exist regardless if Blizzard owns it or not. The community owns that type of thing. The demand to see it in Overwatch 2 is going to be high no matter what, just based on how much better they're making the new game and how much interest there will be when that game comes out. Owl has been holding out hope that that day eventually will come, but its clock may run out before that. Okay, now I want to move on to maybe show some light at the end of the tunnel, which I've tried to do throughout these news stories, that it's a mix of bad and good and bittersweet and whatnot. I'm trying to find the route for the Blizzard comeback tour. What does that look like? Well, first of all, I think a very under-publicized fire at Blizzard was their head of HR, which, remember, most of the dysfunction around this was between a couple key people, friends in high up positions covering for other friends, and without HR to check them like they're supposed to, the dysfunction just ran for years and years without any self-correcting mechanism. In the human body, when an infection comes in, the white blood cells go out to attack it. Well, if you don't have any white blood cells, those infections will just linger as they have at Blizzard for so many years. Now, it's even more complicated than that, because I feel that what this case is kind of unraveled at Blizzard is that the sort of marquee allegations that are social justice in nature are just one big part of it. There's like a couple other big parts too, where they use HR as a way to kind of bully their own employees just in general, not just discriminating against minority groups, but in a very dysfunctional way. And anybody who has followed Blizzard for years, you should know this already. This is like their public position on anybody in the public eye in relation to their game. You say the wrong thing, you do the wrong thing, you're just blacklisted and pushed out, and you're not part of the cool kids club anymore. You don't get invited to anything. Very quickly do they disown people, which is funny considering that they don't do that when there's cancer inside their own organization, which makes that ironic. Funny, not the operative word there, but sad, I suppose, to see that that's how they treat their internal employees too. Okay, with all that being the case, HR head is fired, along with J. Allen Brack, of course, stepping down, which there was the only option available considering it is pretty clear that he covered up a lot of this abuse, assuming the allegations are true. Frances Townsend steps down from the company's women's network. She's not fired, but she's out of the position where she kind of speaks as a woman in the company, as she did with the really offensive statement. So that's rectified. All these things put together. Is this because they know they have to change internally, or is it because their stock price is down over 10%? It's a little tough to know. I tweeted this out the other day that got quite a lot of traction for one of our tweets, kind of summing up the state of the Blizzard redemption here, saying Owl sponsors dropping out, stock price down 10%. Looks grim today, but with Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2, there's a path to bounce back. But it won't be with more of the same, coasting on successes from 10 to 15 years ago. That's done. Overwatch 2.0? Hell, they need Blizzard 2.0, which seemed to be a sentiment that a lot of you guys echoed as well, understanding that if we're gonna have a thread throughout this video, right? The way Blizzard used to go about things, or that attitude of, don't you know I made World of Warcraft? That just doesn't fly anymore, because that's attached to the lawsuit, right? That's what Alex said, allegedly. So you can't be pushing your weight around like, don't you know who we are? No, we know who you are. You messed up with who you were. So now you gotta be somebody better than that, because you went around on bandying about the virtues that you stand for and holding everyone else in the world on a razor-thin margin that if they even come close to stepping out of line, you just disassociate from them immediately because it's public, of course. So if a player or a content creator or a community member or whatever does anything wrong, they immediately push them out. Then internally, you're harboring abusers that were doing things worse than anything I've ever heard. No one's gonna take you seriously if you have a BlizzCon and spend 30 minutes talking about all the great things that your company has accomplished and done and all the diversity and virtue signaling you wanna purport to stand for. We all know that's BS now. I mean, I kind of knew it then too, but you know, who can say? Who can really call them out on that? It's tough, right? And it doesn't really gain you anything to throw stones at people making the right mouth noises with their face. Because at the surface level, it's like, well, they're saying all the right mouth noises. Like, yeah, but talk is cheap, isn't it? And then from where I'm sitting, and I think many of you as well, that talk is done. We need actions. We need more things like the articles I brought up showing that, okay, they're changing leadership X, Y, and Z, but that's like step one. They need to conduct themselves in a brand new way for consumers to have trust with this company again. Because remember, these are the guys that sold us a dream that Blizzard is an inclusive place for any outsider group. You've seen the BlizzCon announcement speeches, right? Come on in. We can all be in this together, no matter what background you're from. How can they sell that when we know that not to be the case for them internally? Just seems like a marketing gimmick, doesn't it? And that's what has made us so upset about Blizzard, I think. But I'll tell you what, we don't have to take this lying down. We don't have the fans, the content creators, everybody else that's outside of the management structure at Blizzard. So that means the devs too that weren't involved in this, all the staff, everyone else can still do the right thing. We can still stand for the right thing. And that's what I'm hoping to do. That's what I said in my reaction to the lawsuit a week ago. And that's where my head's trying to be at. And I think the lesson that we learned is the importance of not just doing the right thing for yourself, but standing up against the wrong thing. It's difficult, and sometimes it feels like without the coordination of the state of California, it's hard to shine a light on these things. A lot of the things that have been said were like vaguely in the air, like an open secret for years. It just, there wasn't any momentum towards it, which is a shame. All right, that's it with the philosophy. I do see light at the end of this tunnel, which I think will get a nice pick-me-up at the next announcement. The way the devs of Overwatch 2 orient themselves, I hope will help build this Blizzard 2.0 approach. What steps are they going to take to redefine what Blizzard means? Because that old school stuff, it's gone. Guys, that's everything for today's video. I hope you did enjoy it. And hey, if you want to support our content, be sure to check out our sponsor's link in the description. Manscaped is a product that I reached out to them to sponsor us because I like them so much. Pick up a performance package with all the fixins by clicking our link in the description and using code OVERWATCH20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order and free shipping. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.